Welcome back to my YouTube channel and to the next installment in the Missabe Western Railroad build. As you can probably tell from the background, I am in a hotel room this week, which means that I have made the trip up to Minnesota to install the layout in the customer's basement. It is January and I really didn't want to come back up here in January. Having spent 14 winters in Marquette, Michigan, I was hoping I had seen the last snow for my lifetime. But not to worry, I'm here now. So let's head over to the basement site and get some work done. Don't go away.
Well, this morning it is Monday the 10th of January and here I am in the customer's basement. You may recognize some of these sections from the previous build videos. There's also two stacks of the simple frames that were built by his carpenter. Here is the intermediate wall, which is going to support the first two runs of the railroad. Everything here is just stacked around the walls. And this is where I've got to start building. The helix sections that you saw from before all get assembled in the middle of this opening. And then that hole down here behind the board is where the low-level reverse loop cuts through. I've moved a few things around already this morning. There's still a box of parts that I haven't yet found. So I'm just going to turn the camera off and find what I need. I'm sure it's going to be in this pile of boxes somewhere. Well, I've been at it all morning, making pretty good progress so far. I didn't think I would get quite this far quite as quickly as I have. I've got somebody helping me when I need it, when I need the extra hands. But that is the lower helix fully put together. All the rail joints connected up. I had a couple of places where I had to repair the track. Down here by the chisel there is a piece that got damaged and I just cut it out and put a new piece in. And then I had a buckle where I didn't leave enough expansion room on the middle level at the far end. And there was some minor damage on that joint that I'm pointing at now. But a lot less than I have seen on other layouts that I've installed as a subcontractor for the other builder. Although I've connected up all the bus wires, I haven't got power on it yet. I'm going to do all the physical assembly first. The next step is to put the piece that goes across the middle from where the drill is over the top of this Y, joining up over this side. And then there's also some damaged rail ends down here. Those two bits of track there got ripped when I disassembled it. So I'm going to cut that track out and put new pieces in. It'll be easy. Fortunately it was only on the top layer. So I'm just going to turn the camera off now, get back to work, and I will check in with you later on. Well, here is the helix assembled in the customer's basement. Let's go around the other side of the wall and take a look at it. It is not attached to the wall yet at all. We decided not to bother with the ledger boards along the bottom edge. We've still got to pull that far corner in a little bit closer, and that will close up this gap here. We're basically touching the wall in this corner. His basement floor wasn't quite as level as we thought it was, so we had to shim some of the legs. The T-nuts and the bolts don't really work as adjustment because the bolt head is below carpet level once it's sunk in. And along the back wall, where there's a lot more weight, we had to shim up those legs as well because they sunk in further. By tomorrow morning it will probably have stabilised, so we can get everything sorted out, get everything permanently attached. Also tomorrow we'll get the DCC cabinet installed, hook up some power and test run a locomotive, make sure everything works. So I will sign off until tomorrow. Don't go away. Well, I'm back on site again on day 2. Yesterday, day 1, we got the entire helix area assembled, and I really did not expect to get that far. It just went like clockwork. Down here we had to shim some of the legs because there's a lot more weight on the legs on this side than on the other legs, so it was sinking deeper into the carpet. Before we attach it to the walls today, we were going to get a level on it and see how much it sunk into the carpet. We may end up having to reduce the shimming on these legs or shim the next row as well. And then once we know how much it's sinking, we can start attaching it to the walls. At this corner, it's about ½ an inch from the wall. At the far end, it's touching, and we'll need to adjust this spacing here as well. Here is the other side of it. You can see we've got quite a big gap here. It's more than the inch that was designed, but that will get reduced when we shift it against the wall. And we have an inch of tolerance anyway. That's the way it was designed, because seldom are basements as straight as people think. Anyway, the plan today is to put the DCC cabinet in place, hook up all the wires, get the control system out, put a locomotive on the track and see if it works. I have no reason to believe it won't. All the wires have been colour coded, and unless I've brain farted and hooked up the wrong colour somewhere, there's no reason why there should be any problems. Well, here we can see one of the reasons why I left these wiring looms extra long at this point, because it means that I was able to leave plenty of space between the layout and the cabinet, so I could get in there and install the wires and hook up all the wires in comfort. Now I'm just going to turn this round into its final place, and those wires will just droop down as they were in my workshop. Well, everything has been hooked up and all the lights are on, showing that we do have power from the booster. This is not the original booster that I bought for this customer. That one is bad, so I'm taking that one home. I bought another control system for myself. Ultimately I'm going to need to have my own anyway. So I've just switched the command stations over, so he now has the good one. And when I get home I will send mine off for repair. So that is a success. Now I've got to hook up the wireless receiver, put a locomotive on the track and test. I'll check in with you again later. Well, it's about 6 o'clock on day 2 and I've had enough for the day. I'm tired. This morning I got some help and together we got the helix leveled and installed, attached to the wall permanently. And then this afternoon I've worked on the benchwork for the 2 staging yards. All the frames were already built, but I've just had to get the ledger boards on the wall, get everything leveled, get it installed. And of course each leg is different, because if you recall from the design, I've got to lose 1.5 inches from that side to that side. And it's not very much, the grade is negligible, but I wanted to keep this end here, about the last 10 feet of it, level, because there's a reversing loop and this track will come diagonally across here from one side to the other, so I wanted to make sure that was level. Otherwise it would be a lot more difficult to install this. Doing it this way, the hard part is done, and it's just a case of cutting tops to fit, putting the road bed down, and then laying track. On this side, the ledger board is for the incline down to the turning loop. There it is, where it will come through the wall. And I thought I didn't have enough legs, but then I found one more. Turns out I had exactly the right number. Let's walk around it one more time. That's going to be a big staging yard. This side is 14 tracks, the other side is only 12 because of the incline, but the tracks on the other side are somewhat longer. Anyway, I think that's 2 good solid days' work. So I'm going to sign off now, and I will see you tomorrow morning. Don't go away. Well, it is now about noon on day 3. And as you can see, I've been doing tops this morning. I've got 4 pieces of plywood in, although only 2 of them are permanently attached. The 2 at this end I still need to make some adjustments to, and I've got to take them out to drill some more holes and do some more framing. There's some framing missing in the slot, and there's a whole load of wiring holes that are going to be a lot easier to drill before I put them down. And if I was thinking ahead, I might have put the bus wires in before I screwed the tops down as well. But I'm not too worried about that. It's not too bad. I've got 12 feet here that's screwed down permanently. I'll just reach under for that, and the rest of it I'll do the correct way. And also I put the ledger boards on the wall up here for the second level before I put the tops in place, because it was a lot easier to stand in the frame than it was to reach over it or climb on it. It's plenty strong enough to climb on it. Well, it is now the end of day 3. I have got all the tops on for the low level staging yard. And you may have seen earlier I got the bus wires in as well. This piece here still needs to get trimmed, but I don't know the exact alignment of the saw cut until I get the track plan out and trace it. Everything is screwed down except for this last piece, and I've deliberately left that off because I think I want to lay the track in there through the wall before I put this top on. It'll probably be a lot easier to kneel inside the benchwork frame than it will be to climb on top of it. And you've got the reversing loop rising up behind it. And this odd alignment of the plywood joints was to make sure there was no kink near the vertical curve. Because there was a frame here and there's a frame here, and there's about a 20-inch gap between them, and that's where the curve is. Ultimately, I think I need to fill that gap against the wall, because with the ledger board below it, anything that falls down there is basically gone forever. Well, it's Thursday morning. I started off today by making a few adjustments to the table that I built yesterday. There were a few places where the plywood was overhanging the edge. I needed to belt sand it off. And I also needed to adjust the top of that grade where the vertical curve was, because it wasn't quite smooth enough. So I'm a lot happier with it the way it is now. And then I was getting ready to start attaching the foam roadbed to this tabletop. Then I realized I still want to get on top of it and move the infrared receiver to the top of this wall. At the moment it's just temporarily located here on the short cable that it came with, but I bought a 40-foot cable that I'm going to replace it with. and that should be enough to get up around the back of the helix and at least halfway along that wall. So that's what I'm going to do next before I attach the foam rubber. This benchwork is plenty strong enough to stand on. I've already been up there a few times. Well, I have the wireless receiver now on top of the wall. The wire all the way back to the corner panel. The wire was a little bit longer than I needed it. I'll take up the slack next time I climb in there, but I'm not going to get in there just for that one purpose. And then also I have the roadbed glued down all along this one side and just a short distance around the end. I'm now going to get the track template out, start plotting some track on this one side. I don't want to put the rubber on this piece just yet. I want to use the track template to tell me where that gets cut, and then once I've marked it and cut it, then I'll put the rubber on. So let me just search through my box of track plans to find the right 3 strips, and I'll get back to you later. Well, I've dug out the 3 track plan sections for this end of the staging yard, and I'm really disappointed. For some reason, the lines that I have to use as guidelines are nearly ½ an inch wide. It's supposed to be thin lines, like this orange line here. If everything was that wide, it'd be absolutely perfect. And also, he didn't follow the instructions as to which layers to put on it. So as a result, I don't have the grid squares. So I've got no way of lining up the sections accurately because there's no registration marks. So I have to guess. I'm going to have to find another source. Well, let's see if I can get it to work. With any track laying project, the best course of action is to start with the most critical areas. And on this staging yard, it's the end curve. So that's why I started in this corner. I've got all the curved turnouts in, and the rest of it is basically plain sailing. I've got a few short easements, and then everything else is straight number 8s. The other half is basically a mirror image, and I will come back and do that as a separate project. But at the moment the track bed only goes about as far as the electric cord. If you recall earlier, I wanted to get the track plan out to use it as a template to cut this curve, and I wanted to get that done before I put the rubber in. But then, having got the track plan out, I wanted to get started with track laying. I wanted to get some visible progress. And since I don't have my Fast Tracks weights with me, I had to raid the customer's pantry to get some cans of food. They also work as quite good weights. But I'm going to have to go upstairs and get another box because I don't have enough. Don't know how much further I'll get today, since the day is nearly over, but I'm going to get at least a couple more turnouts in. I will check in with you again tomorrow. Well, it's now Friday morning, so this is the start of day 5. What you see here is 4 days' effort, starting with the helix at the far end, and then building the benchwork for the staging yards. As you can see, I got a little bit of track laid before I went home yesterday. I ran out of weights, so today I bought 24 additional weights disguised as Mountain Dew. Eventually I'll drink it, but for the time being it has a more important purpose. I'm not quite sure how much I'll get done today. This is a big staging yard. It's a lot of track. It might be beyond the reach of one day's track laying. In fact, it probably will be. There are 15 very long tracks, and there's a few more turnouts that haven't gone in yet at this end. If you recall, that was one of the areas that I built back in my workshop. I may well stop and make progress reports during the day, but on the other hand I might just go straight through. But I will talk to you again later. Don't go away. When it comes to installing turnouts with undermounted switch machines, the operation can be critical. And to make sure I get the hole in the right place, I start by marking it with a Sharpie on the two ends of the tie bar. I've already got a centre line that I can follow, so I don't need it the other way. Right now I'm doing 3 at a time because I have these 3 turnouts all joined together. So I'm going to continue that line across there. There's the centre line. Now, instead of drilling 1 3/8 or ½ inch hole, as is often recommended, I'm going to put 2 holes side by side. First get the rubber out of the way, otherwise it tends to tear with the drill. Now I'm just going to hack out the piece between them. Start it off with a knife. Then yank it out with some pliers. And back to the knife again. And then I clean it up with a wood rasp. This is a half round, so I've got to turn it round in the middle to do the other side of the hole. The trouble is with my rectangular one is that it doesn't have burrs on the ends as well, so it doesn't clean up the ends of the hole, whereas this one does. And that hole has plenty of room for the operating wire, so that switch machine will never give any trouble. Let me just go finish the other 2, and I'll be right back. Well, I've now installed these 3 turnouts. Just ignore where I dropped it and got the glue over where I didn't want it. Sight along it, make sure the alignment is perfect. And I'm just going to weight it down with some cans of food. Well, it's about 1:30 in the afternoon, so a little bit more than half the day has gone, and I'm making pretty good progress on the staging yard, as you can see. I found a load of micro-engineering flex track which I want to use up in this staging yard, and I'm finding that it's not as easy to glue down in straight lengths as the Pico. I find I have to put a lot more weight on it and leave it for longer. And the easiest way to weight it is by putting the can sideways, which means I can only do alternate tracks. I have to come back and fill in the others later. Well, I didn't quite get the whole staging yard finished. I have 1 more turnout and about 6 yards of track still to install, but I've had enough for the day, so that'll be a project for tomorrow morning. I'm going to just sign off now, and I will check in with you tomorrow. Don't go away. Well, I've now got all the rubber down. It took a bit longer than I expected because as I was about ready to start, I realised there was things I needed to do first, like get the track installed in there before I screwed down this front piece of benchwork. It was a lot easier to work deep in that hole when I could get inside the frame instead of having to reach over it. But anyway, it is now all glued down, and I'm ready to work on this side of the staging yard. Not quite sure how much I'll get done today. I only have about 3 to 4 hours left, depending on how late I want to work. For this afternoon, I started laying track where I left off before, worked my way around this way into the yard ladder, and then I installed this row of 5 turnouts at the back. At one point I thought I didn't have enough left-hand turnouts. Everything I got left is right-hand, and actually I was a couple short, but I was able to make some modifications. Those tracks in there, on the original plan I needed one left-hand turnout, everything else was right-hand, but I figured out how I can do it with all right-handers. I also used the spare number 7 fast tracks turnout that I sent him as a sample many months ago. And in this location I was able to realign one of the mains to use an extra right-hand turnout instead of a left. So with those modifications I have just enough. And I always had plenty of right-handers. Well, it's Sunday morning. I have just removed all the weights from the track that I laid last night. I'm going to start today by filling in the gap on the ramp down the back there, those 2 tracks, and then also from this brown turnout around to the centre track here, fill in those 2 gaps, and then I'm going to leave the front and get that yard ladder in there in the middle, while I still have easy access to, by standing on this area here. So I'm going to get on with that, and I'll check in with you again later. Don't go away. Well, it is Monday morning, and I started this on Monday morning last week. So what you see here now is exactly 1 week's progress. If you recall, I started by reassembling the helix, which was dismantled in my workshop and transported down here in pieces. Got that put back together. Then I got the benchwork in for the lower staging yards, and I've finished laying the track over this side. This side is completely done. Well, I don't have any feeder wires or switch machines. All the track is in, all the way around the end. The diesel storage yard is in. The steam storage area I haven't started yet. I've got all but 2 of the turnouts in at this end. All this straight track in the middle is still missing. The yard throat at the other end was built in my workshop, if you recall. And I've also got the rest of the return loop in through the wall and climbing up the back, connecting up this end. So that's how far I got last week. Let's see how much I can do this week.